Today I'll be speaking on the life of Horace Mann, one of the early American philosophers, politicians, and champions for education in the early years of our nation's history. He was also known as the father of American public education. He was born on May 4th, 1796. Just for a timeline reference, this was less than a month before Tennessee was admitted as the 16th state of the nation. With George Washington the president of the country, as Horace was born into a farming family, plagued by a history of financial misfortune. He was born in a town in southern Massachusetts named Franklin. His education as a child was sparse, as no consistent educational system was established. It's hard to know exactly what Horace experienced as a student in Franklin, Massachusetts, but it's recorded that he received no more than 6 weeks of education per year in his life before adulthood. It's also hard to know exactly what storm of factors led Horace to his passion for education, but I imagine part of it had to do with the town he grew up in. Franklin, Massachusetts was home to the country's first public library, the Franklin Public Library, with books donated by Benjamin Franklin himself. This was his supplemental education, self-taught, to make up for the lack of an established school system in his childhood. He also studied Latin and Greek with a local minister in town named Samuel Barrett. Horace went on to study at Brown University, where he began his interest in politics, education, and social reform, the basis of his future endeavors and legacy. He was successful, and in his valedictorian speech, he said to speak on dignity, happiness, and the gradual advancement of the human race, as he lamented that the shortcomings of humankind could be solved with the combination of education and philanthropy. He continued into a law degree at Litchfield Law School, passing the bar in 1823 at an impressive 23 years of age. Brown University did not only grant Horace an education, but a partner. His first marriage was to Charlotte Messer, the daughter of the president of Brown University at the time. She tragically passed a few years after they wed, and it's stated that he never fully recovered from the trauma of her passing. He went on to marry a woman named Mary Tyler Peabody, and together they had 3 children, George, Benjamin, and Horace Jr. Horace Jr. must have felt the pressure to live up to his father's legacy, as he is credited with the discovery of more than 100 species during his time heading the botanical garden at Harvard University. His personal herbarium was the foundation of Cornell University's botanical collection after they purchased it at his early death at just 24 years of age. I included here a photo I found of Cornell's botanical garden, which I thought was absolutely beautiful. In addition, while it wasn't stated anywhere, I personally wonder if Benjamin wasn't named in honor of his true educational basis, Benjamin Franklin, in the library that likely began his passion for learning. As a champion of public education, he served several powerful roles in his professional career. This included the Massachusetts legislature, the state senate, and most importantly for his reformation of education in the state, the Board of Education. During his time, he traveled to every single school in the state individually to assess the needs and strengths of that school. He also had legislative tax-supported elementary public education, whereas before it was seen more of a privilege than an expectation for students to be well educated. He was also a strong supporter of feminizing the teaching force and inaugurated what they called normal school in order to create and teach the educators for the state. He served time on the United States Congress and was even nominated to become president through the Whig Party, but his nomination failed. His career came to an end at Antioch College as the president of the institution, where he was the first to hire a female faculty member at equal pay rate of her male peers. That year he passed after his last commencement speech, where he stated, "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity." I think it's clear that he achieved that and more in his life. He was the founder and editor of the Common School Journal, which focused on the issues surrounding the public education system. 6 of the founding principles of this journal were as follows. Public should no longer remain ignorant. An education should be paid for, controlled, and sustained by an interested public. Education is best provided in schools that embrace children from a variety of backgrounds. Education must be non-sectarian. Education must be taught using the tenets of a free society. Education should be provided by well-trained professional teachers. Beyond his work in legislation and reform, I believe that these ideologies are some of his major contributions to the culture around education. One of Horace Mann's beliefs was that children would rather memorize words and sentences than learn the names of the letters themselves. He's been quoted saying that the alphabet was repulsive and soul-deadening to children, and that letters themselves are skeleton-shaped, bloodless, ghostly apparitions, which I find personally hilarious. Apparently, this was a very common 19th century ideology, so he may not have been entirely alone in these thoughts, but it doesn't make them any less unique in regards to today's standards. He's also given an interesting take on the alphabet in relation to animals, stating, "When we wish to give a child the idea of a new animal, we do not present we do not present successively the different parts of it. An eye, an ear, the nose, the mouth, the body, or a leg, but we present a whole animal as one object." Something to consider, I suppose. Early stages of education in the United States revolve heavily around religion. Horace believed that these educational systems and religion should have a degree of separation. He's quoted saying, "Our public schools are not theological seminaries." There were some people advocating against this type of thought, and while this was his belief set, he knew that it wasn't so cut and dry. He later said that it may not be easy theoretically to draw the line between those views of religious truth and of Christian faith, which is common. As we're speaking on the things that he accomplished in life, I think of this quote from the Dean of Stanford in California a little bit later in time, who said about Horace Mann, "No one did more than he to establish in the minds of the American people the conception that education should be universal, non-sectarian, free, and that its aims should be social efficiency, civic virtue, and character, rather than mere learning or the advancement of sectarian ends." Thank you for tuning in and listening to this early philosopher's history, legacy, and presentation. If you have any questions about the references that I use in this PowerPoint, or if you'd like some guidance to some different sources to learn more, please do not hesitate to email me at the email listed on the screen. Thank you for watching.